Coming to you straight from the Rio Grande and beyond. Broadcasting to the four corners of the globe. So grab your seat, your coffee, or your sundowner.
Okay, everybody, here we go.
On point, as always. This is Gloves Off. Gloves Off.
Back at you in Gloves Off, and today we have a special guest, a master of an art that many wanted to practice when I was going to the martial arts. Many still want to practice. Many want to learn. It's a martial art that was created by a Grandmaster Wally J. It's called Small Circle Jujitsu. And today we have one of its prodigies, actually, Master Norman Johnson. How are you doing, my brother? You doing good?
Doing well, sir.
And let's touch base in what's the difference between Small Circle and the other jiu-jitsus that are out there?
Well, we came from a Kodokan base, which was taught by Henry Okazaki in Hawaii. We, Professor J found that there were some things that could be efficiently done faster and henceforth a little more effective. And he started changing things back in the late 60s, and he really got a lot of grief from other Kodokan jiu-jitsu masters for having the audacity to change the art.
Sure. You know, a lot of people don't know that a lot of arts change. A lot of arts are more modern in terms, you know, I would say from 55 to the present. You know, Aikido and all those were all developed in that time frame. So there was a lot of not reinventing of the wheel. There was new adaptations, new modules to follow, I guess, you know, from the Kempos to most of everything was changing from the older ways to a different, more easier way for the modern man. What do you think about that?
Well, Professor Okazaki was changing his art all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So Professor J's response was, gee, Okazaki changed it all the time. If he found a more efficient way to do something, he changed it. And it got passed down from generation to generation. And I think that he didn't discover anything. I think he rediscovered things. And I don't think any of us, after this many years in the arts, have discovered anything. I think it's just all a matter of rediscovering a different way to do things. And then you also learn to adapt to your body style and your style. You know, some things will work for you really well if you're short and you know a fire plug, and something which won't work well for someone who's 6'5".
Correct. You're absolutely correct. And you know, a lot of these arts were, especially here in the United States and coming from Texas, to train with somebody like Wally J, you actually had to either move to California or Hawaii and kind of get under one of those groups that was already there active and start training. I know they did a lot of seminars back then, but how did you get involved, especially with that system, and was it something that you were looking for, or what happened?
It was a total stroke of luck. When I was 10 years old, my father took me to a judo club in Oakland, California. And it was on a Saturday morning, and it was just a regular workout day for the club members. And it was very intimidating for a 10-year-old. And had he taken me to a kids class, it might have been different. But watching a bunch of smelly old men in their pajamas with funny colored belts on, throwing each other on the ground, making funny noises, was very intimidating for a 10-year-old. And I wanted nothing to do with it, nothing at all. And then my father was quite disappointed by that because he was a black belt. And the first day of high school in Alameda, California, they lined us up alphabetically. They put me next to a little skinny guy named Leon, and he and I ended up becoming best friends. Well, come to find out, his father owned a dojo in Alameda and trained Bruce Lee and a whole bunch of other people, and I got pretty much inducted into the family. And I remember my few times coming to the house saying, you know, they invited me for dinner, and they were all eating with chopsticks. And I said, hey, can I get a fork? And they said, well, no, not in this house. If you're going to eat here, you learn to eat with us. So here's a pair of chopsticks. So I learned how to eat with chopsticks real fast because I was hungry back in those days. And so fortunately, next thing I knew, I was on the mat, and I was one of Leon's very first students. He put together a group of, I think, 5 or 6 of us, and 14-year-olds, and we trained, and it was when Bruce Lee was just coming into the spotlight. And next thing I know, I was working with Professor Wally J, and his wife Bernice J, who is a force to be reckoned with. And just so that I got lucky. I wasn't searching it; I was avoiding it, and I ended up falling at being in the right place at the right time. Had I joined that other club, I might have been mortal enemies with Leon and been fighting against him in judo. So it worked out. It was just a quirk of fate, and it changed my life.
Absolutely. And you've been around. You've seen a lot of different martial arts.
Yes.
What would you say attracts people to the small circle jiu-jitsu in comparison to the other arts? Because when you start talking about small circle jiu-jitsu, not everybody knows that it exists. And it's those martial arts that know that it exists. The martial arts that have been around are the ones that say, oh yeah, it's a good art.
Well, what I specifically like about it is it's not power-based. It's technique-based. So very small people can do it. Very large people can do it. Women can do it. Children can do it. And it's. I love watching an 8-year-old girl take down a 200-pound man with a finger lock or a wrist lock, and having him tap out on the mat crying like a little girl, with a little girl doing it to him. So it's not a striking art. We do strikes, but it's not a striking. We do kick, but not a lot of kicks either. And I don't think I ever saw in all the years I was with Wally. The only time I ever saw him actually do a strike is when James DeMal came over and taught us how to do the 1-inch punch that he learned from Bruce Lee. And Wally got efficient with that really fast because he understood two-way action, and he had a boxing background also.
Sure. And how did you feel with studying with somebody that taught Bruce Lee? Because a lot of people say, Bruce Lee was an icon in the martial arts, as we know. And Bruce Lee pushed or was the driving force of many searching for the martial arts, or they ended up becoming martial artists because of Bruce Lee.
Yes, it was a fashionable thing to do at the time. He really brought the martial arts out into the forefront, and the things that he did made the public very aware, and it excited a lot of young people. And next thing I know, they all had sticks, and they all had they were all trying to do his Bruce Lee's high kicks, and they all wanted to say "Aye!" And it had a very positive effect on the martial arts, I believe. And as far as I didn't even know Professor J had done anything with Bruce Lee until after I'd been there a couple of years, and I'd seen pictures of Bruce Lee on the wall, and all the time they spent together, there was never a picture of the two of them together. And there was always next time, so there was nobody ever took a picture. And so he said Professor J had lots of letters from Bruce, and he had lots of pictures of Bruce, and he was a close friend of the family. He and Linda, they were just part of the family. They came over for dinner and stuff all the time. But that was a little before my time, so I got to meet Linda in the later years, and she's just a sweetheart.
Yeah, she's good people. She's good people. When we met her back in the 80s, she was great people. Yeah. Here's one. How do you see with the martial arts going and MMA going and grabbing, and because there's a lot of cross training. A lot of individuals do not understand that the heads of a lot of these systems cross train with one another. It was common knowledge that they cross train, but their students don't understand that they cross train. How do you see jiu-jitsu or small circle continuing in the future?
Well, back in the late 60s when I got involved in this, it would have been early 70s. Most of the instructors, pretty much all the instructors, had an attitude of, gee, you come to my gym and you train with me. If you go to somebody else's gym, you stay there. And you don't come back to my gym. You found someone you like, go there. And Professor J had a very different attitude about that. He said, go out and learn Hapkido, learn other arts, and bring it back to us. And if it's something that works well, we'll incorporate it. And so Professor J was always looking for a better way to do things. He was always looking for a better, a different thing to add to our system. And when he crossed paths with George Dillman, and George and his pressure point systems, a lot of the pressure points Professor J was always already using. But for instance, triple warmer 11, he called the Goji tendon because that's what the doctors told him it was. And that's just above the elbow, and we use that in our arm bars. And it increases the effect of the arm bar. And he'd been using it for quite some time. And George says, oh, that's triple warmer 11. He says, oh, okay. And then a lot of the other points that Professor J already used, George showed us what they were called on the Chinese acupuncture chart. Excuse me, sorry. On the acupuncture chart, and so it was a nice marriage between Small Circle and George Dillman's pressure point fighting because it made our art a little more effective, and it made George's art. George said, "Hey, when he incorporated Small Circle into his art, it improved his art." So it was a nice blend. And then Remy Priestess got involved, and he brought the stick fighting into it, the modern arnis. And the three of them would go places and do the big 3 seminars, and I got to go on many of those and had a great time. And that's was the beginning. That was about 25 years ago. The beginning of my pressure point education.
Absolutely. And a lot of folks say pressure points don't work. They do work. It's hokey. No, they do work. Small Circle does this. It's like every martial art people want to give a negative to if they do not know it. There's a lot of roads, what I'm trying to get, there's a lot of roads to get to what you're trying to get, and that's to be able to defend yourself. There's so many different fighting methods and styles and systems that exist out there that one should have a open mind, not to argue with somebody else that's traveling a line that is different than yours. You might learn, diversity changes. And that's what happens. There's arts out there that kick and punch that's going to still get the person safe home. There's arts that are, I guess, more manipulative grappling, if you're going to put it that way, that work and can get somebody home. So there's so many different ways of getting to your objective, which is defending yourself and your loved ones. And you should never make fun of that because, unfortunately, many exist.
I'm an eternal student. I am constantly watching other arts. I'm learning other things from other arts, and if I find something that I can use, I will adapt it and I'll use it. And if it's better than what I've been using, then I keep it.
Right.
If I find a hole in it, then I may not keep it. But having something in your tool bag versus nothing, so there is no bad art. Anything out there might save your butt, and the more you learn, to adapt to different styles, and how it's nice to cross train because if you do nothing but sticks and someone puts you in a joint lock, you're not used to that pain. If you're doing striking art only, if you get someone put you in a joint lock or into a pressure point, you're not used to that pain.
Absolutely.
And you respond very quickly to it, and it gets your attention really well.
Absolutely.
So blending the arts is something that I think is wonderful. So cross training I encourage completely. And if you get a chance to train with anybody in another style, do it. And that's one of the things I love about teaching and traveling teaching, because I get to hang out with guys like you and see what you do, and then I like a lot of the things you do, and I'm going to use them.
Sure. All the arts, like I said, cross training and watching, there's an old saying that either you beg, barred, or stole.
Yep.
The technique. And that goes alongside, because if you're a fighter, if you're a pugilist, if you're a person that likes to fight and you see something that's good, and you just see it once, you're going to put it in your back of your mind, you're going to try to remember how it was done, and you're going to come as close as maybe 100% to what was there.
Yeah.
And it's you're going to take it and you're going to make it your own, and you're going to start building from it. And that's what a lot of martial artists do not understand. You're going to beg, borrow, and steal from others, especially if it's good and it's worth it. If it's not, we're just going to look at it and keep on walking forward.
Yeah, and you may discover things, but there is nothing new. You know, I do a finger lock that I don't see anybody else using, but it's a new one. No, it's not new. I just rediscovered it. I didn't. I discovered it was there, and you know, that brings to mind. I was at a Big 3 seminar, and one of the students came running up to Professor J. Wally and said, Professor J, Remy Priestess is stealing your stuff. And Professor J looked at him and says, I know, we call it sharing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you know, it's not like it used to be years ago. It was one of those, I know something and I don't want to let you see it. And it used to be a very secret art. And now it's coming to light, and it's the stuff we do is not acceptable in a lot of arts. For instance, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which is great. It's a great art in the dojo. They don't teach street fighting, and I did attend one of the Gracie seminars, and I really admire and respect the fact that he said, I'm not teaching you street fighting, this is dojo fighting, and there were rules. And with street fighting, everywhere I've been, I've looked everywhere, and I've never seen anywhere rules posted. So in our system, there are no rules. We bite, we scratch, we pinch, we pull hair, and it all works.
You know, the street, a lot of people don't understand this, the street's very violent. Okay, we just saw, a week ago, a Marine was a convenience store, was turned around, turns back, and the guy had a gun sticking out. He removed the pistol from the line of fire and he hit it with a sack that he had 2 Cokes inside. Mm-hmm. Brings it down and controls him. Well, he did well. Okay, he did well. You know, that fighting spirit that he had with him was, he had it already, probably because he went to war, came back, and he was a veteran. You'll have it inside, it'll trigger them off. But a lot of other people do not understand that if you counter, if you hit somebody in a self-defense situation, it's not going to be your pretty kick when you're up there, you're posing for the camera. It's going to be something that just came out and nailed that person. And you have to be prepared for that as well.
It's very important that you don't overkill. You know, if there's a situation that you can put into control. That's one of the nice things I like about Small Circle is if I have a confrontation with somebody, I'm going to put them under control. Professor J used to say it's not how much you can hurt a person, it's how little you can hurt them and still control them. And so if I, if I punch a guy in the eye and give him a black eye, I struck him, and I'm going to be held responsible for that. He may have been doing something bad or said something bad, but it's I'm going to be punished for that. Whereas it's very difficult for someone to go to the police and say, "Hey, he had me by the finger, and maybe he screamed like a little girl, and it hurt so bad. Did it leave any marks? No. Well, sorry, kid, go away."
It reminded me of something right now that I was thinking was, my mind went a little bit when you were talking. My uncle had rheumatoid arthritis, okay, and he walked with a limp. And somebody had broken into his house, and called cops, and he said, he's waiting, and he said, "Oh, it's over there." The person was knocked out, and he said, "What happened?" Well, he just basically slipped and fell, and I later on I told him, "Well, what'd you do?" And he goes, "Hit him a couple of times." And I said, "How'd you hit him?" And he said, "With my knuckles." And I looked at his hands, and he couldn't make a fist, but he could sure hit you with his knuckles because the knuckles were still right there. You understand what I'm saying?
Yep.
So it was this little old man that could barely move was knocking out a person that had jumped into his house and basically made him go to sleep for a while, and police came over and picked him up.
As you get older, you have to adapt.
So when that happens is a lot of people do not understand that the older we get, the how can I say, the malice that we had learning built stronger, the energy stronger, and the precision's going to be there. We might not look at stuff as we were younger or built the way we were, or that person's going to say, "Well, that's a martial artist, that's the way they're supposed to look like." Later on, it just, age catches up to you, and that's why I always tell people this, and I tell my students this: you learn from those that are older. Learn from them, because you're going to learn the small techniques that the others have not acquired or have forgotten, And they're the ones, those techniques is what they're going to rely on. And that's what one needs to get, because hopefully we all can get to that age.
And that's, how do you get to Carnegie Hall? Practice,
Practice,
practice. And once you have it down to where it becomes muscle memory, you own it. And you don't have to think about it. It's just there. And when you run into a situation, you're lightning fast because your muscles don't have to think about it. They already know where to go. You just tell them your end result you want, and there it is. And you don't have to go, oh, I have to raise this hand, I have to lower this hand, I have to. No, it's just automatic, and that's why you need to practice, so that it becomes automatic. And once it's automatic, you own it, and no one can take it away from you, and no one can use it on you. If I give you a knife, someone can take it away from you. If I give you a gun, someone can take it away from you. I give you knowledge, no one can take it away from you, and you'll own it forever.
Absolutely correct. And, we're running out of time. It's a great conversation. We'll continue with it. What would you tell somebody out there that is looking for martial arts? What would you tell them? This is what you look for. This is what you're looking for. If you want to go train with us, the doors are open here. That kind of.
There's no substitute for experience. Look at their background. And it doesn't mean that a brown belt can't be a good instructor. They can still be a good instructor. But look at what they do, look at the results, and look at what kind of person they are. Because a good martial artist becomes a different person. They're committed, they're dedicated to what they do, and they're setting a good example for you. So find a good example to train under. Find someone that you could respect because they'll respect you.
Absolutely. And absolutely, there's some great pearls out there. And folks, if you guys are listening out there and you want to go look for Small Circle Jujitsu, I recommend Norm in California. If not, give us a call. We'll put you in contact with him, and he can direct you in a good place where you're around, if there's any, or how you can get involved with it, because it's a great art. If you're just looking to go train in a martial art, go in there with an open mind. Understand what the person is, understand the schools, look around, ask them. Don't be afraid of asking questions, Where did you learn? Who taught you? Okay? How long have you been in business?
Do your homework.
Do your homework before you join, okay? Till next time, much peace.
Aloha.